What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another video, and in this one, I am bringing you guys that UDFA video that you guys have been asking for. I'm going to be breaking down each of these guys that the Patriots have signed as UDFAs. Of course, I'm not going to be talking about the ones that they have released on the first day here of minicamp. The Patriots did release a couple of guys. With that being said, the ones they released, obviously, I won't be talking about because they released them. They're not here. But the way that I'm going to be listing these guys is going to be who I believe kind of has that best chance at making the final roster. The Patriots have an 18-year streak of a UDFA making the final roster. Some of these guys include David Andrews, Malcolm Butler, J.C. Jackson. I believe, if I'm not wrong, Jonathan Jones was also one. And despite us barely signing any UDFAs this past year, we even had one of them make them in 2021. That was Quinn Nordine. You look at 2020, it was J.J. Taylor. 2019, you had two with Jacoby Myers and Gunnar Olszewski. But before we hop into this, I do want to let you guys know, if you don't know already, the two UDFAs that were released on day one or after day one of rookie minicamp was quarterback, wide receiver / running back De'Aaron King, who a lot of people were excited to see here, and cornerback Devin Hafford. Two guys who I was actually going to have fairly high on my list. Now, first up on my list is going to be defensive lineman LaBryan Ray, a guy who is listed at defensive tackle but can also play a little bit of defensive end, especially kind of at the next level, transitioning to the NFL. He's a little bit smaller for an interior guy, so I could see the Patriots playing him more as kind of an edge guy. But as someone from Alabama, the Patriots drafted 0 Alabama guys, surprisingly. But you know Belichick does his due diligence on guys from Alabama, has those connections back to Nick Saban. So I'm sure he kind of talked to Saban about LaBryan Ray, kind of got some information about him, kind of looking at his 2 cents on him. But the Patriots really didn't draft anybody on the defensive line. They drafted Sam Roberts late in the draft, but that's about it, especially when we all thought, hey, the Patriots could go edge or defensive tackle fairly early in this draft. They decided not to do so, and this defensive line did have some issues. Now, it's not exactly stapled. A guy could definitely still come in and make the roster, especially as a rotational piece. You look at the rotational pieces the Patriots currently have, and no, none of those guys really stand out. I think a guy like Byron Coward's definitely going to be on the outside looking in. I think Ray could definitely battle him for a roster spot. And luckily enough for LaBryan Ray, he's not going to be going up against a whole lot of guaranteed veterans who, again, are guaranteed to make this roster. It's a lot of young guys who are still unproven. So I do think he has a lot going for him. Now, he does have really good size, especially transitioning to the NFL. Those measurables will definitely translate. 6'4", 283 pounds. Again, plays as an interior guy, but I do think the Patriots will, again, try him more as an edge guy, just kind of at that size at the next level. Great play strength, a guy that was a former 5-star high school prospect. You know, the Patriots love to look into those guys. But the big reason that this guy went undrafted, because you're probably saying, well, hey, if he has the strength, he has the intangibles, why didn't he get drafted? Well, he had 5 years in college, and throughout the majority of those, he was dealing with a lot of injuries. You can't showcase what you're able to do if you're not even able to be on the field. As we always hear, the best ability in football is your ability to be on the field. Your best ability is your availability. And nobody cares how good you are, how good you were in college when you were on the field, or how good you were in high school. If you could barely get on the field, there's no point in having you on the team. But the Patriots have also been a team where they never really cared about your injury, kind of history. We've seen guys from previous teams, like Hunter Henry, for example, who was never able to stay healthy with the Chargers, comes to New England, somehow is immediately able to play a full season. Also playing for Nick Saban and over there at Alabama, pretty similar scheme styles, so he's someone who should make a transition a whole lot better than most of these other UDFAs. Now, he's a guy who's definitely going to excel more in stopping the run, more though as a rushing the passer. But the Patriots need that. They need a guy on the edge especially who's going to be able to come in, set up a wall, and not let guys bounce to the outside. New England was ranked 25th this past year in yards per carry in the run game. They're obviously looking to upgrade at that spot for this upcoming season. They really didn't address that, though, at all this offseason. So, again, I think he has a lot of, good chances from the outside looking in to make this final roster. Now, next up on my list is going to be defensive back Brandon Schooler out of Texas. And, I mean, immediately, one of the reasons that he's higher on this list is because, well, he's a pretty good player. But two, he's a defensive back, right? The Patriots need help with defensive backs. I think these younger guys, especially these UDFAs too, they're going to get time in training camp. They're going to get looks, especially with no veterans. Then them needing to upgrade, especially at perimeter, these guys are going to get more looks. And again, with the Patriots needing outside guys so much, that could bode really well for Schooler. Now, he is someone who is more of a safety rather than a cornerback. I do think the Patriots will still try him there. He's a guy with super long hair, so always having those guys on the team is always just fun to watch them with the hair flowing while they're running. But he is more listed as a safety. The Patriots could just use all the defensive back help they can get in general. But 206 pounds, 6'2", you gotta love the size on this guy. Really good agility, but played in 21 games with only 8 starts and appeared in 9 games and made 1 start at wide receiver. Something I really like about him, though, is that he's a defensive back that used to play wide receiver. That can really, really bode well for those guys, being able to predict the moves of receivers and, of course, being able to mirror them in man coverage. He is someone who was mainly a core special teamer, though, in Texas. He's someone who has good instincts, like I mentioned before. I think that really plays into him being a receiver, good play recognition. The thing, though, is that I could really see this being a situation where he comes in, starts off as a special teamer, maybe a little bit down the road, he can become more of a starting piece on defense, maybe this year a rotational piece at best. I don't expect him to come in and right away be a starting piece, but I like his potential more out of these other defensive backs that the Patriots have. He's also very willing to tackle in every phase of the game, but, you kind of put these all together and it seems kind of like that Brandon King, Nate Ebner type of special teams role, which is definitely where I see him at least starting if he does make the final roster. Brandon King's gone. You lost Brandon Bolden. You need to replenish that special teams, and Bill Belichick is looking for that. I'm also going to be really curious to see how he can go up against, NFL level speed and not just, Longhorn Texas speed. But if alone we're ranking guys who are likely to make the roster, hey, a guy who's a defensive back with good size, used to play wide receiver, who transitioned to safety, and is a great special teamer, that just screams Bill Belichick to me. Now, next up on my list is offensive lineman guard/center Liam Shanahan from LSU. David Andrews is getting older. The Patriots are going to have to find that future center. If the Patriots didn't go Cole Strange in the first and then Chasen Hines in the 6th round, I would be saying maybe they need this depth more, and then he could have been higher on my list. And I mean, hey, maybe he can still beat out a guy like Chasen Hines. But for the most part, I feel like the Patriots' interior of the offensive line, depth-wise, has gotten better over the last few weeks, especially since, if we're comparing before the draft and then after the draft. You have your starting left guard in Strange. You have your starting right guard in Michael Onwenu. But nonetheless, you do still need backups for those guys. The Patriots do like to have, a couple of guys at guard/center who can kind of substitute in for those guys. Especially in situations where someone like Michael Onwenu might have to slip in and play some tackle. I think someone like Shanahan coming out of LSU is definitely someone who can compete for that backup job 100%. I mean, other guys you're looking at with on the interior of that defensive line, someone like James Ferentz, who the Patriots have had in and out of this kind of organization for a very, very long time as a depth piece. He's getting older. Drew Desjalaris, who, the fact that I can barely say his name kind of goes to predict how I see him ending up on this roster. And then Will Sherman, who was brought last year from the rookie class, who just absolutely had a terrible year. And then Arlington Hambright. I don't think he's going to do much of anything either, so I think things are looking good for someone like Shanahan if he can kind of come out and show some stability and kind of show that versatility at center and guard. He could be someone that sticks around for sure. He is somebody, too, that is a little bit of a bigger guy for a guard/center, 6'5", 300 pounds. But I really like that ability him being able to be versatile, play some guard, play some center, but especially coming out of LSU, that's a big college. I love guys who are coming out of big colleges just because that competition level is so high, making that transition usually is easier for them. I mean, I even heard someone like Evan Lazar say that Shanahan, by some experts in the league, some scouts were projecting him that he could be a starter at center by a team in this league. Now, next up on my list is going to be linebacker / edge Demarcus Mitchell coming out of Purdue. I've even heard it been said that he can also play some hand-in-the-ground defensive lineman. So, I mean, that versatility straight off the bat is something the Patriots are going to utilize in one of the best ways for any player to come in, especially as a UDFA, and make a roster. Someone who's versatile, somebody who's explosive, and they've actually used him as a quarterback spy before a little bit in coverage too, which is where him playing a little bit of linebacker also kind of comes in here. I would say a little bit of a smaller guy though. Ultimately, if he's going to play defensive line, especially interior, you will want him to bulk up 100%. You still might want to have him bulk up a little bit in general at 6'3", 265 pounds. Also has some special teams experience. Now, he is someone who's more of a speed rusher rather than a power rusher. Kind of how I can compare him would more so be someone like a Chase Winovich, even like a Judon at times. Not really with like the play style per se and how they're going to be super effective in rushing the passer, but just in the sense of they really like to use that speed, not so much the power, and sometimes they kind of lose sense on where they are because of how fast they're going. Their goal is really just to get to the quarterback, which in run-pass options could really screw you over. So if he's going to play edge, that discipline is a big question mark, which really got Chase Winovich out the door because his eyes were always set on getting to the quarterback, that he could not kind of keep the edge up, couldn't set the edge in the run game, which is why he's currently not here in New England, which could be the big caveat that prevents him from making the roster. Now, next up here is going to be another center in Cody Russell out of Houston. Now, he's someone who is undersized. He is only 6'2", 292 pounds, but this dude is just absolutely electric. He is feisty. He is fired up. And we've seen in the past that the Patriots, again, they're not scared to take oversized or undersized offensive linemen. David Andrews was a guy as a UDFA, came in undersized, and look how that's panned out for him. Not a real big explosive guy. We'll have to see if he can develop over time. Kind of doing my research on him. Kind of beat reporters for the Patriots, I've kind of seen them kind of compare him to somebody like David Andrews, which, hey, maybe David Andrews takes him under. He's on the outside looking and kind of brings him in here. It's not going to be like a David Andrews case where, hey, David Andrews started right away for the Patriots. David Andrews isn't going to get kicked out for this guy, but maybe they see the future in the center position in Cody Russell here. They stash him on the practice squad or, may have him make the final roster and then ghost him with an injury. But I think he has intangibles that are definitely going to be interesting to watch, but he's definitely going to have competition. And then lastly, here's punter Jake Julian out of Eastern Michigan. This one's last on my list because he's a punter. There's really not something to say about him. He's nothing special, for lack of better words. He isn't going to be a guy that's 90% of the time going to kick it within the 20. He doesn't have this crazy 80-yard booming leg time after time. Consistency isn't his thing. He's not Matt Araiza. And honestly, I think the fact that the Patriots did pass on Matt Araiza shows that maybe they are really committed to somebody like Jake Bailey, who is in contract here, and maybe soon enough we see that contract extension get done. But nonetheless, he is in contract here. They're gonna bring an insurance policy. Now, he does still have a big leg. It's not Jake Bailey, it's not Matt Araiza, but he does still have a big leg with 2 70-plus yard punts in his career. But again, the Patriots really wanted a punter. They would go out and they would have drafted somebody like Matt Araiza, who was drafted in the 6th round, is just an absolute game changer. The Patriots drafted Jake Bailey in the 5th round. The Patriots easily could have drafted Matt Araiza in the 5th, could have drafted him in the 6th. They are a team who isn't scared to draft a guy too early or too late. And I think because they didn't, it really does showcase the fact that they do believe in Jake Bailey and that he is the lawn answer to the punting position for the team. Although he did have a down 2021 year, the Patriots are still going to add some insurance policies here, but I really don't see much happening here for Jake Julian, who I think at the best is just going to make a practice squad. Now, real quick, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this channel, betonline.ag. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that baseball is back, and the start of the Major League Baseball season is finally here. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. And it's super easy to get started, so head to the website today and use that promo code CLNS50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That is BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts, and BetOnline, where the game starts. But what are your guys' thoughts on this UDFA class? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video and subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. But like always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and go Pats.
In Astroworld.